Welcome to episode 3 of Back to the Roots. I'm host producer Eric Fisher. You know me from the Rupert, Wisconsin main show. Also joining me here is the coach Justin Daul. Justin doing a little split duty here with us. He is the creator of the Back to the Roots show, a member of the Root for Wisconsin podcast network. Justin, happy National Wisconsin Day as we record. Happy National
Yeah,
Wisconsin Day.
you did a great job with the Root for TikTok that you came up with today. It was a good video. I hope everybody gets out there and then takes a look at it. I'm excited for the episode we've got here. We've got a lot jam packed in here. Interview with one of my mentors, a great man, a great human being, and Coach Russ Young, the Gillett Boys basketball coach. Just really stepped up for us and came up on last second to fill in the interview spot because I didn't want to do 2 weeks in a row without an interview, Eric. That's kind of what we're kind of basing this show off of. So, but I'm excited for that and a awesome boys basketball team we're going to look at in team of the week. A great player from Coleman for player of the week, and then we'll look a little bit into the girls seedings that came out and look into what the boys seedings could look like.
All right. So with that, let's get right into it. Last week, really two main topics we talked about. First, we talked extensively about the Green Bay men's coaching job. Really, technically no developments there.
Yeah.
Just kind of looking at the program, did not, they did go 0 for over the weekend. Did have a very good game against Detroit Mercy on Saturday. Really kind of showing the growth of the team and facing the adversity, of getting a brand new coach, midway through the season and keeping in your same system, different guys getting some different minutes. And we had the Green Bay coaches show last night that I admittedly did not know was coming. So
Yeah.
threw a little bit of a loop into the Valentine's Day plans with Secretary Shauna.
Uh-oh.
We had to push our reservation back because I got a phone call like last minute saying, "Hey, where are you?" I'm like, "What do you mean, where am I? I'm at dinner." And we were waiting for our reservation, and it's like, "Oh, there's the coaches show." I'm like, "Oh." So I had to speed across town and get back in the station for an hour. Luckily, we were able to push our reservation to be right as we got back, so it worked out. Um, did
You in the
not.
doghouse?
No, 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 no. It
You
worked
go in
out.
the doghouse, Eric?
Huh?
You're a lucky man. Secretary Shauna treats you quite well.
I'd
If you're
have to.
not in the doghouse,
I'd have to. She was a little bit mad because she got hungry, and any man,
you never
that's a
let your lady
scary
friend
moment.
get hangry. Never get her
Yeah,
hangry.
the hanger be real, but um, we did get to go to our reservation. We got right as we got back, we were able to sit down at the table, so it worked out perfectly. I couldn't have worked it out better.
So
But
on your show, Eric, was that the Borseth one, or was that is there a Freddie Owens one
there
though?
is
Or
there's a segment on both, and that's kind of where I was going. Is Freddie Owens really talking about kind of stepping into that role and it's a fun show. Admittedly, it's a fun show. It's not you know X's and O's for the full half hour that each coach is on. Actually, 20 minutes because we do have the player segment as well. But
Mhm.
um, with each part of the team. But Freddie Owens really kind of stepping into the role, acknowledging, some of those challenges of watching, one of the guys that brought you in have to step aside, and then, you have to take that next man up mentality and continue to, focus on these kids. And in our interview, I think we're going to talk about, focusing on the kids and focusing on that one game at a time mentality with Coach Young. So kind of guiding, having him talk about that challenge on, with a program that admittedly is struggling.
Mhm.
Um, it was a very good conversation. Then even talking to the player who came to the episode last night, Ryan Wade, who came into the program. He's new to the Green Bay program this year, um, but is an upperclassman as well. So kind of that interesting dynamic of being newer to a team that is struggling and kind of guiding, the younger classmen along the way, and not letting them get discouraged and embracing a new system, even when it's necessarily not working, if you will.
Mhm.
So, if you get a chance to check that out, it was great. Coach Vogel actually stepped in for Kevin Borseth on the women's side, and Jasmine Kondrakowicz, a Southern Wisconsin product. I'm pretty sure she went somewhere in Milwaukee as a high school. I probably should know that, but um, anyway,
That one I don't know, Eric. I'm sorry I couldn't help you with that.
Coach Vogel's always great too. I mean, Coach Borseth, Coach Vogel. She's the associate head coach now. She's gotten a promotion this year.
Yeah.
And you just talk about the consistency of that program, and really, something that we've talked about on the main show and off air, on air, the consistency, but really the new rise that we've seen this year. Only having one true senior on the roster at this moment, being Sydney Levy, the Appleton North product who initially started her career at Milwaukee.
Mhm.
But one senior on the roster, and in terms of roster seniors, we have the COVID year still built in for a lot of these kids, but um, the growth and really kind of, we talk about, is it Borseth sliding? Is it the rest of the league just getting better? I've always been one to say I think it's the rest of the league getting better because of how good Green Bay has been.
Yeah.
And this year really just proving that when you have, basically three recruiting classes coming in, you took a little bit of advantage of the transfer portal as well, bringing in girls like Tatum Caning and some other products as well. You really kind of balance that fine line and get yourself in a position to be back to controlling your destiny for the Horizon League regular season title. Already knowing that you're going to be hosting that quarterfinal game in Green Bay before you go to Indianapolis potentially for a semi and final championship game in the conference tournament just speaks volumes to these kids who've had to kind of put that work in, have had to face, the Cleveland State, the IUPUI, and even Youngstown State, who's been a great program the last handful of years as well. Um, so just kind of covering those bases and believing in your system and kind of, again, Russ Young's going to talk about that, implementing your system, buying in, and getting the best out of your talent that you have.
Mhm.
So all in all, just a great time with that program. Had to touch on that as well, which leads us into our other main conversation from last week was the girls basketball seeding. They had their computer release of seeding over the weekend. And Justin, I'm going to let you take it from here because you're far more the expert. I know I kind of finally got into, I caught some of the seeding as it came out and saw it on different Twitter releases and Instagram posts, but you're the expert here, so I'll let you take this away.
Yeah. We'll just go over some of the surprises. We kind of nailed a lot of it last week with where teams would get seated. Um, we did talk about a big matchup in Division One that happened last Friday that was going to determine a lot, and that ended up determining what the number one seed was going to be in the regional, and that was the Nina and Hortonville game, and that ended up going to Nina, and Nina handed them pretty good. Um, Hortonville slipped actually a second spot, and now they're the three seed. That was the three seed kind of was a surprise. We did not cover the Superior team that got the two seed, so um, sorry I could not lock that up for us. On the other side, in Division Two, um, Notre Dame clearly number one seed. Marinette slipping in as a four seed, getting a first round bye. That's first time for them, so congratulations to them. They'll host Menasha, a good West Appear team and a good Fox Valley Lutheran team. Um, New London out of the Bay Conference gets a one seed. That's a big uh, determining factor for them. On the flip side, they play the two seed in their sectional is Lakeland, who has a young lady that will be going to Marquette, I believe, Alumet girl, and she is a dang good scorer, Eric. I've watched her a couple times. She's really good. Uh, Monona Grove, one seed. Keep your eye on them. They might make their way back. Um, we've touched base on this. This is primarily Division Three is going to primarily run through Freedom, and it's probably not going to be close for their sectional. Oosburg gets a one seed. Somerset gets a one seed. Um, those teams will hang with Freedom. I wouldn't be scared of them if I were Freedom, to be honest with you. Freedom, uh, I've watched them a couple times. They're a fun team to watch. Prairie du Chien, Dominican was a state qualifier last year. They returned a young basketball team from a state qualifying team. You have to touch with them, probably at state. Waupun, who won D3 last year, gets a 2 seed, and their 1 seed in there is St. Augustine Prep. So that'll be an interesting battle down the road. Hopefully that gets to it. In Division 4, there were some surprises. Um, Crandon gets a 1 seed over Bondwell and Coleman. Coleman gets the 2 seed over Bondwell, which is a bit surprising. Just kind of the conference strength of schedule, something with computer seeding that we'll touch base with Coach Young later, and how he feels about it. A good Phillips team in that sectional 1-2. Uh, and Neilsville is a state qualifier from last year that will be there. Um, in Division 4, 2 state qualifiers will return in Aquinas in Laconia. Laconia was we touched a little bit about them last year. Um, a superbly young basketball team. They're still a superbly young basketball team. I think they're primarily led by sophomores this year, number 1 seed. I believe they're 19-3. Uh, the last time I checked, Aquinas always a standout basketball team with Coach Donarski. His oldest daughter plays at Iowa State. His youngest daughter has offers from all over the area. She will be a D1 prospect in her time. So, yeah, Bondwell getting a 3 seed is a bit of a surprise. Mishicot gets the 4 seed, and O'Connell will play in the first round against Crivets. And then we'll have to play a tough basketball game against Mishicot, and Mishicot's play Mishicot's played a tough basketball schedule. Took down a state ranked Brilliant team. Um, your your team, Eric.
They're
Your
not
team.
my team. Don't you dare.
We talked about them last week. They're your team.
They are
They
not my
took down a
team.
state
I
ranked
wanted the
Brilliant team
awareness.
last week.
I wanted the awareness to them. I did not claim them
Okay.
as my team.
All right. And then just for fun's sake, New Glarus, uh, their team is the number 1 seed.
Are they the
If they
Spotted
get to
Cows?
it, they are not. I can't. They were just their boys basketball team was just at state. I want to say 2 or 3 years ago.
The
I
Moonmen.
cannot remember. Ooh, the Moonmen would be a good one, Eric.
No, it would be.
Yeah, that's good thinking. But yeah, Cuba City, a 2 seed. Cuba City is always a perennial power. The shocker for a lot of us out of these computer seedings, and this probably is so much of a shocker because it's so close to our viewing area, is Leona Wabino with 5 losses uh, gets a 1 seed, Eric, in Sevastopol, who has played a darn good and tough schedule with 1 loss, gets a 2 seed. Uh, to be honest, I think that's a travesty to Sevastopol. They well deserved the 1 seed. Uh, Really, not much matters to it. They were easily the 2 best teams in their sectional. They're probably the 2 teams that are going to meet uh, in Gillett for a sectional semifinal game. Um, Talk to our AD tonight. He is pretty bound and determined not to give that game up and have that game in our gym. So that would be awesome to be a part of that experience. South Shore, way up there. They have a pretty big alum, Eric, and Megan Gustafson, who had a sister. Um, I can't remember her first name, but Megan played at Iowa, and I believe is Iowa's all-time leading scorer. So they've won a couple state championships, and they'll be tough out, and so that's pretty. The top bracket of sectional 2, Eric, is tough. Assumption state ranked, Edgar state ranked, Athens state ranked, um, Iola Scandinavia. We talked about playing in a really tough conference that could step out and be something that helps and attacks that or that sectional, it might really surprise an assumption in a regional final game, and that might happen. So we'll look forward to that. I've got my sheet, Eric. I'm gonna write them down, and I'm gonna follow as we go, so you can watch it. Okay, so
All right.
that's the quick look at the girls. Sorry if I missed some teams. Um, Gillett Gillett at 14 wins or 13 wins gets the 8 seed. They'll play a home game. Um, I'm trying to remember who that is against. It's like Wasaki, I believe. Yeah, they play Wasaki at home.
So just real quick, we've got to talk about the Sevastopol game. Um, because to be honest with you, or the Sevastopol draw, because I think that was an insult as well. I mean, yes, it's the one, it's a 2 seed. You're still having a in
Home
paper.
games all the way through until
Yep,
sectionals.
exactly. So I did have a little bit of an issue with that as a whole, them getting that 2 seed, but at the same time, again, you get the home games all the way through, so
Right.
it is what it is. I'm kind of amazed. It wasn't down year in the Pac-Land as a whole, but that's a darn good conference usually year in, year out. So, I guess
Still,
credit to the computer system in the sense of, not holding prominence to the name of the school versus, the record. But at the same time, tough draw.
it, it didn't do the computer seating justice. Like most of the state air kind of checked out and was really good. It was, I mean, there's a one line or two line or whatever, but this one was so drastic. You're talking about a 4 loss difference. One of them was to uh, the one loss was to a really good conference championship basketball team. You're gonna win your conference by 3 games.
Yeah, they
It
wrapped it up early this week or late last week already. So,
this one was so egregious, so ridiculous, that I was shocked when it came out. I remember you were the one that broke the news to me because I forgot what I think I was out eating with my family, and I was like, "Oh, are you sure?" And yeah, sure enough, when I looked it up and watched the bracket release show, that's where it came out, and even they questioned it on the bracket release show. So
my bad for spoiling that for you, by the way. But
yeah, that's all right. It's all right. Same thing happens this weekend, so don't spoil it for me, Eric.
I will do my best not to. I will let you text me on it this time.
All right, my friend.
All right. So with that, I think that brings us to our. Do you want to talk boys here? Do you want to talk team of the week?
Yeah, let's go team of the week. This is a big one, Eric. We just got done talking about them. The De Pere boys basketball program is on fire right now. They're easily, well, not easily, but they are currently the best basketball program in the state. They just beat the #1 team in Division 2 in Pewaukee, the Pewaukee Pirates. Pewaukee is littered with high-level prospects on their basketball team. Milan Mamasolovic, if you could say that, and Nick Janikowski, um, who has a Wisconsin Badgers offer. He's a junior. Uh, the first guy, Milan, that I talked about is committed to Iowa State, for Pewaukee. Now, they come, they play Saturday, and De Pere beats them by 7 at home. So big win. De Pere's 22-0. They're #1 in D1. Um, Clearly right now on a roll. They're averaging 75.8 points per game, Eric. They can put the bucket, or they can put the ball in the bucket. They're fun to watch. That Pewaukee game was fun to watch. If anybody is out there um, looking for something to watch, that's well worth it. It's on their YouTube channel. Just again, want to touch base that all of our stats provided here are from With Sports. Um, some of the greats, Mark Miller and Norbert Durst for the boys and the girls sides. Um, De Pere is led by senior John Kinzinger. He
No,
has
commit.
Illinois State commit. Yep, 19 points per game. Does it all, Eric. I think he leads the team in rebounding too.
I'm checking those stats right now, but I believe you are correct. Yes, he does. Gets 5.4 boards a game, and also leading in assists as well. He's getting 5.3 assists per game as well. So
He's a
um,
heck of a basketball player, Eric.
does it all.
Yeah. Their second leading scorer is Will Hornseth. He's a junior. This dude is 6'8". He slammed a couple down the other night watching them against Pewaukee. He has offers from Green Bay, Illinois State, and Toledo. It sounds like Illinois State might want to start a factory from De Pere, or either Coach Brian Winchester has a connection there that's really good. He is averaging 16.1 points per game, and he's their second leading scorer and second leading rebounder. And then the third leading scorer is sophomore Zach Kinzinger, the younger brother of John. He's 6'2". He's averaging, which is darn good in that conference, Eric, as a sophomore to be averaging 15.1 points per game is impressive. He has an offer from GB. Don't know where that stands with the coaching staff and how that's going to go, but look forward to really seeing where his career is going to go. He's undoubtedly going to get more offers than just GB. And the next coach at GB is going to have to work his butt off to keep him. Yeah. And some of the most notable wins, Eric, for De Pere, um, they just beat Pewaukee. We just talked about that game. Really good game. Uh, Specifically, if I'm just going to step out away from De Pere, the Janikowski kid is awesome. He's amazing to watch. So I would um, go and watch it for that reason alone. Back to De Pere, they have crushed almost every other team that they've played. You're talking about a 15-win Bayport team, 15-win um, Kimberly team, and I'm talking 20-point wins. So they have really put Coach Winchester has really put together a great basketball program there, um, and the fruits of his labor are really paying off.
Yeah, absolutely. Just kind of looking at the schedule as they've played some, they've played throughout the year and seeing that, the showcase games, a 74-34 win against Brookfield East, the WBY shootout. A 64-41 win over Homestead at the Germantown High School at Germantown for the Warhawk Invitational. Some of these, teams that you typically wouldn't play, so you don't necessarily have that quote unquote experience. Even a nail biter against Wisconsin Lutheran, played at Wisconsin Lutheran College, going in and taking care of business against teams that you don't have in your conference, and sprinkling that in throughout the year, so it's not all just kind of like the good old way of both high school and college, where you play a couple
Hmm.
games at the beginning of the season and then it's all conference from there. So sprinkling those in and taking care of business all the way through.
Yeah, yeah, they've done a great job. Coach Brian Winchester's done a great job there. So I think that means we move on to our next one, right, Eric?
Yep, that brings us to our player of the week. Real quick, just honorable mention before we get into the actual player of the week.
Okay.
Got a shout out to good, family friend Derek Shaw from Pulaski, scoring his
Yeah.
1,000th point last week. Uh, Amy Shaw, former Spanish teacher at Gillett, Dave Shaw, I'm going to say friend of the program, um, coaching Pulaski, getting to coach his boys. Nice article about them in the Green Bay Press Gazette as well, kind of talking about the father-son dynamic, getting to coach his son, and I'm sure a lot of coaches, I'm not going to say all of them, but most coaches take that as a true blessing, to get to coach their son. So to get to that 1,000th point the same night, LeBron James broke the NBA scoring record, and basically from the same spot. The picture, from what I saw,
Yeah.
was almost from the same spot, that free throw line on a jumper. So shout out to Shaw, Derek Shaw, for getting that 1,000th point last week.
Congratulations, young man. I hope it was an experience that you'll never forget. Okay, our player of the week, Eric. Um, Amazing young lady from Coleman, Aubrey Bintz. I coached against her first couple of years. She is a senior this year, but she is the reigning MNO player of the year. She leads the team in scoring at 14.3 points per game, but that doesn't do her justice, Eric. She just went off for 27 points against Suring. Coleman is 19-3, and she leads almost every statistical category uh, by a long shot. 7.9 points or 7.9 rebounds per game, 4.8 assists per game. So she's not only just scoring it, she's dishing it too, Eric. She's playing for her teammates, um, and 4.6 steals per game. So she's doing it all, Eric. She's a three. She'll be after she gets first team this year. Undoubtedly, probably will get Player of the Year again this year. She'll be a three-time first team All Conference player um, in the M&O Conference. Has led Coleman in a daunted sectional that we've touched base on to the number 2 seed. Whether that's a shock to anybody or not, 19-3 is a great record. They've won the conference already by a landslide. Um, Coach Todd Olson's done a great job there, and has really accentuated her skills and her leadership ability, and it's paying off. They look to do some damage in the tournament, and they'll play at home. And there's a lot to be said, Eric. You'll play at home all the way to a sectional semifinal game if you're lucky enough to get there. So, um, seems like all things are going right for young lady Aubrey Bintz and Coach Todd Olson at Coleman.
Congrats to her. As for winning this, she gets a case of absolutely nothing, but
Yeah.
be sure to get that sent over. But shout out to her for all her hard work and being our spotlight player for episode 3.
Yeah, great. And now, Eric, I think we're on our last segment of the night.
Yeah, let's wrap it up before we talk to Russ.
Okay, so we're just going to talk real quick about the boys' sectionals and seedings and how they're going to look. Some of the favorites, just real quick. Um, in sectional 1 and D1, the sectional final will be played at Wisconsin Rapids Lincoln. Semifinals are at West, Oshkosh West, and Stevens Point. The heavy favorites coming out of that, you've got a good Eau Claire Memorial team, a good Hudson team. Some of our local teams are okay. Nina's at 13-8. Um, yeah, you got Chippewa Falls team at 12-9, and Appleton East at 10-12. So the local flavor outside of Nina is not um, looking to be the favorite in that sectional, but maybe Nina can damage it in the daunted conference that they play in. It's pretty tough. So sectional 2 is really local. Um, that final is at Manitowoc Lincoln. Some of the semifinals are at Kaukauna and Hartford Union. Bayport is 15-6. That is the Bayport team we were talking about that beat or that got or that lost to De Pere, who's 22-0, that are in that sectional. Fond du Lac 17-5. You've got Kimberly at 15-7. You've got Marquette at 15-5. Sheboygan North at 17-4. This sectional, Eric, sectional 2 is loaded with
I was gonna say, just
superior teams.
you're going through this list of teams, and again, not being as into the high school scene as I once was, and as much as you are. 3 loaded teams that are all state ranked in Division 1, that being Sheboygan North at number 5 in the state. You mentioned Fond du Lac, you mentioned Marquette. All of those teams are in that top 10 of the Division 1. Now, granted, that's a coach's poll, so it's not necessarily going to play out to seeding, but very good conference. And look for I'm going to say look for Sheboygan North be one of those 1 or 2 seeds.
Yeah. So some local teams that we didn't touch base on that have got some okay records are Kaukauna at 13-9. Just a great coach there, a great program for the long haul that they've had. And Green Bay Southwest at 10-12. Could win a game or two in the playoffs and surprise a team.
All right.
Quick, in sectional 2 of Division 2, I'm sorry, let's back up. In sectional 1 of Division 2, the semifinal that will be played at Wapaka, some local teams, 14-8 New London, and 16-5 Shawano, Eric. So Shawano might have a run. Fox Valley Lutheran's a good basketball team. They might run at it. Um, but I would expect Shawano to either get a 1 or 2 seed out of that sectional one. That sectional final will be played at Menominee. Um, in sectional two, the semifinal will be played at Pulaski, just up the road from us.
You
This is a
down the road for me.
well, okay,
No,
Eric,
actually, that's the other way around. But anyway, semantics don't matter.
you're right, right. Okay, at Schwabenon, 12-9. This this sectional really seems like it's up for grabs amongst our local teams. You got Ashwaubenon 12-9, Green Bay West 5-16, Luxembourg Casco 7-15, Menasha 8-13, Notre Dame at 13-9, um, West Appear at 11-9, Seymour, a good friend of mine, an old foe, is the head coach at Seymour, Bobby Kuka, great coach. You got the Pulaski team that we shouted out with the young man Shaw and then Coach Shaw at 9-12. How this sectional is seated will be interesting. And with that, we'll move on to Division Three, Eric. Um, Sectional two, with the semifinal being played at Clintonville. Uh, some real good teams. This one looks like it's got a favorite between Little Shoot and Xavier. Little Shoot's 21-1, Eric, and Xavier's 20-2. But there's some sprinklings of good teams. A Northland Pines team that made state last year um, is at 16-5. Amherst 13-8. Clintonville 11-10. Um, you've got a Peshtigo team that's just up the road from us, or for me, that's 17-5, Eric. So this sectional seems really good. On the bottom side, uh, look forward to what could be an awesome game between Brilliant and Southern Door. Brilliant, easily the number one team in D3 amongst the coaches poll on WIS Sports, and Southern Door at 18-3. And we touched base about them a little bit last week with their young man Drew Doust, just really filling it up in the bucket there. Other than that, D3 seems like the top sectional. The sectional final will be played at O'Connell Falls. I don't know if I said that already,
You didn't.
but that would be a fun one to go to, Eric.
I'm gonna just in real quick here. One team we didn't mention. They're not necessarily in the neighborhood here, but worth mentioning. St. Thomas More kind of back in the fold once again after their controversial season last year. So another team to kind of watch. They're back at the number 5 ranking in the state currently at 17-3 according to the standings. I'm sure they probably played a game already this week, but just another one of those teams where keep your eye on them, see how they play
Yes,
out. They could make a return trip to Madison.
yes. Um, just touching base in Division Four, Sectional Two. Just a huge sectional amongst really good basketball teams within the bottom side of that bracket. The semifinal that's played at O'Connell Falls. You've got a good Bondwell team at 15-6, a good Coleman team at 14-7, a really good Crivets team at 20-1, Kiwani 13-5, Menominee Indian at 12-9. A Manawa team that we played not too long ago has really found themselves with their 6'5" young man. He dropped 30 on us. A St. Mary's Catholic team that is 20-2. It really looks like this could be headed towards the Crivets and St. Mary Catholic uh, final, but I wouldn't sleep on a good O'Connell team that's 13-7. Just playing in a daunted conference, some of these teams, the record doesn't quite add up, right? Um, so the top side of that sectional, which is played in Marshfield, it looks like it might be a two school runaway between Auburndale at 17-3 and Marathon at 18-3. Eric. So as we look forward to that sectional final that we played at Appleton East.
Lots of local flavor in this one for Division Four, and to be expected given the populations of our respective towns. But just some love to Crivets, Auburndale Marathon, all in that immediate area, and really finally getting some of that love across the state. Where Auburndale at eighth in the state, Crivets finally getting in. Well, actually, they were 10th last week, but getting moving up a spot. Marathon unranked last week, sneaking into the top 10 in the coaches poll.
Yeah, big. It's big. It's big to feel good at the end while you're going towards the tournament. And lastly, Eric, we're going to touch on Division 5. Sectional 2 is most importantly to us as our area teams. Um, the one semifinal is Suring. It's going to be played in Suring. The sectional final will be played in Rhinelander. In this sectional, you've got Elko at 9-12, Florence, who's really good. We played them first game of the year, 19-1. Gibraltar, who made state last year out of our sectional, at 7-13. They're a far better basketball team than their 7-13 record. Um, Gillett at 14-7. Really hoping that a win Thursday night could lock them into a 2 seed in playing a regional final game at home. You've got a Three Lakes team at 14-6. A Leona Wabino team that's 10-12. Um, so there's a lot of teams, Eric, within this regional that are floating around 500, and Oneida Nation 11-9. You've got Leona Wabino at 10-12, right? So just a little bit better than what the records show. And on the top side of that, Eric, it's going to be a fun one because you've got a good Columbus Catholic team, um, a good Athens team, and a good Newman Catholic team that will be fighting towards their sectional representative.
Yeah, absolutely cannot sleep on Newman Catholic, third in the state according to Coach's Poll. 18-2 by these standings here. Again, I don't know if they've played earlier this week or not since that poll has come out, but a team that just year in year out seems to be right in that conversation. Basically, every sport they're in too. So, cannot sleep on them.
Yep. Just one side note: a good team that got pushed south in their sectional. They'll play that sectional in Fond du Lac. Is Green Bay NEW Lutheran at 16-5. Don't know much about the other teams that are floating around in that regional, but traditionally you're talking about a Sheboygan Christian team, and the Lord's Academy team that have been traditionally strong.
Yeah, absolutely. New Lutheran, NEW Lutheran, I should say. I'm gonna go proper here. New Lutheran, they are led in scoring by Tristan Lynch, 23.1 per game. And another Mearstein kid. Seems like there's 100 of them, but
Yep.
16.5 for him as well. So two double-digit scores per game in a tough conference. Especially when you look at some of the competition like that Gibraltar team, like that Southern Door team we were mentioning earlier, some of those schools like that. So definitely a team to pay attention to that has made some runs at state in recent years. Once again, that Packerland conference, we talked about them last week with Drew Doust and all the things coming out of that, and those teams that just every single year you've
Hmm.
got kids and just stepping up and making a darn good conference.
Yep. Yep. And a heck of a coach in Coach Mearstein. He's been doing it for a long time himself, and he's led a lot of teams to state, and he's done a great job at NEW Lutheran.
All right. So they've, seating wise comes out. So Justin, I know we're going to talk to Russ about what he's doing for seating. You said you'll be a little bit slow to find out the seating on Sunday. What do you got going on?
Do the family thing, Eric. We'll go to church Sunday morning. We usually attend that at 10:30. If nothing is planned after that, then I'll watch it live. If not, then I'll put it on repeat. So I will let you know ahead of time, Eric, if I'm going to be able to watch it live or not.
So what
There's
what time
nothing
does it
else.
start?
There might be a race that I'll watch.
Well, I was going to ask you about that here in a little bit, but what time does it start?
1 o'clock.
Go
1
watch.
o'clock
I'll
for
go
the.
watch it.
That is on. You can go to the WIAA website, WIAA.org. They'll share a link there, or NFHS network. It is free to watch, Eric. You don't have to pay to watch it.
All right, Justin. So real quick here, I just want to get your thought. I know we're going to talk to Russ about this and his thoughts as the head coach, but you're coach both football and basketball, so kind of early stages of this new computer seating, and there's pros and cons to it certainly on both sides. But where are you falling in on this change of the old guard to the new guard?
I have have struggled, Eric, with change in my career as a coach. I don't like it, but there are some things that after it's done and we move on to it, I like. Specifically with seeding is when we moved from an 8-team regional to a 16-team regional, but still crowned 2 regional champions, which is cool. At the time, I did not like it. I love it now. I think it's great. It's less of a conference tournament than it was before, right? Um, as far as computer seating, I think it evens the playing field out a lot, and I'm a person that has done this. Uh, a lot of politicking and a lot of um, knowing who's who and trying to get the best seed you can happens in those coaching seeding meetings. So for that sense, the computer seedings really matter, and they really even the playing field out. Do not like the fact that no coaches know what the whole formula is. Don't know really how to schedule. Um, and specifically, if you're a D5 team, it's not like you're a D2 team and can go schedule a D5 team and just play down because that team's going to have a good record, and it's not going to affect them. As far as strength of schedule and how that's going to matter. Um, Now, there's something to be said on the flip side of that argument as to what if you're tournament tested, if you're ready to go at tournament time. Um, I do wish there was somewhat of an appeals process, specifically when you look at that Sebastopol and Leona Wabino line. I think you appeal that, and it's hands down the easiest decision any coach is ever going to make. That Sebastopol deserves that one line. Um, Remotely close to us, I think Bondwell probably deserves the 2 seed in the home game against Coleman. In that sense, I think Bondwell actually got the easier draw. Uh, Coleman might run into a good playing Kiwani team that could give them fits. So I think Kiwani could do that. I think it's just the fact that you can appeal, the fact that you don't know what the formula is, the fact that you don't know um, scheduling wise what's the best route. Um, it's not really fair to coaches. It's not really fair to athletic directors. What this does, and nobody really is talking about, Eric, is what it does to athletic directors, in the sense that you are going to schedule a lot more of year to year deals instead of home and home. Like we would automatically re-up a home and home with Bondwell. We would automatically re-up a home and home with NEW, right? Um, some of those are okay. We're gonna have a good team this year, so Wrightstown wants to play it down, and we're gonna play Wrightstown, and then we're gonna beat them, and Wrightstown is not gonna want to play us again. I think the same thing happened to O'Connell this year when they played Wrightstown. Um, So you're going to see a lot more of that of year to year scheduling, year to year, more headaches, trying to find dates to play those games. So I think there's just a lot more to factor what this does to a program.
All right, and just one quick question because I know we talked to Russ about this as well, and kind of I know I've kind of talked to you off program about it, but kind of talking about going from the girls' game to the boys' game, and also I want to ask you straight up the challenges of going from that head coach to the assistant coach role. What's that been like for you?
Um, I don't know that the adjustment from coaching head coach to assistant coach is as hard as it is for most, because um, I truly think Coach Young values the knowledge that I have, and respects the tools that I bring to the game. I don't say, "Hey, you have to do this. This is the way." Um, I'm not steadfast in that sense. It's, hey, you might want to think about switching to this, or you might want to run a set play. You might, just put the thought in the head. I think that's the biggest switch. Obviously, you don't wear the weight of the world on your shoulders when you're not the head coach. Uh, you can look dumb, and it's still the head coaches that look dumb. Russ would appreciate this, but I think he looks dumb all the time. He's a good friend. I can say that about him. I have truly appreciated coaching with Coach. Um, he has given me the freedom to, as he discusses in his interview, delegating. He does not delegate very well. That was one of the things that I did extremely well. I love delegating. I love the CEO type of coaching. This is how I want it done, but I'm going to give you the power to coach it. Um, he is not that, so it's opposites are butting heads, and so that that part of coaching with coach is awesome. Um, it's been a growth for his team all year long, uh, and it's been fun to watch. Yeah. So what was the other question, Eric? I got long winded on that.
Just going from girls to boys because you coached
Oh,
so long in the girls' game,
yeah.
and granted you have had football to kind of switch the gears a little bit as well, but just kind of
Yeah.
that switching gears from girls basketball to boys basketball.
I would say dramatically switching from basketball to football is a greater switch for me than it was for
When you
um,
elaborate on that, it's an open question.
boys to girls. Boys to girls, you can be not as politically correct against with boys. They tend to joke around a lot more. They tend to have a fun, but they also know when it's lock in time. Now, girls on the other side is um, they lock in, and when they're ready to lock in, you got to take advantage of it. When the boys lock in, they know when the time is right, and you have to coach less in the sense of what timing is for a basketball team with boys. You have to coach more in the sense of where we're at, whether that's practice, whether that's fundraising, whether that's in a game. What does that look like all the way around? Um, so that to me is the biggest facet. Now in football, if practice becomes stale, and we're kind of I love my offensive coordinator. He's a great offensive coordinator, but he loves to talk, Eric, right?
I'm
And
very aware of
so,
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
and as you're a part of the coaching staff yourself, so but he loves to talk. So what I love about coaching the football side of things is I just got to keep him going. Like I'm allowing him to coach the kids, coach them, but let's get this thing going and let's stay on
Sure.
track. And the same thing happens with defensive day or special teams day. We've got to keep going. It's that in football, more of the CEO type of things has really led us to grow as a program. Instead of one voice, we've got coordinators that are coordinating what they want to do, and a coach that's giving them the free will of what they want to do, as long as it's we all agree on it and we all do it together. So I think that's really leading to the success of the program and stepping up, and hopefully that will lead to a playoff run.
All right, one more quick, just real serious question, Justin.
Is this a Coach Daul interview or what?
Yeah, why not?
All right.
We gotta
Give
get
prop to Coach Daul interview. I
So
like.
I'm gonna ask you just one thing you asked Russ as he was kind of your coaching mentor, as someone as I've gotten into the coaching role myself, and in my limited time that I have, what do you give to young coaches? I know that you've also stepped up and helped some other basketball coaches in the area, as well, kind of pass the torch to the next generation. So what do you have on your front?
You just got to take it day by day. Every day is a different challenge, right? It's a different game plan. Every day is that would be like, if you're gonna live by a motto. One of my mottos is tomorrow we try again, right? But the other one you could have is tomorrow's a different game plan, uh, a different practice plan. Um, no day is the same, and so whatever frustrated you yesterday, whether that was a player, whether that was your coach, whether that was a situation that happened with the school, or an administrator that kind of rode you, or whatever the issue is, tomorrow it's going to be different, right? And tomorrow you need to come in with wide eyes. You can't, as the head coach, you can't carry the weight of what yesterday was. And so I would just say, in building a program and moving forward, is you can't look back. You can't look at, we could build on what was back there, but you can't look back to move forward. I'm not driving at the Daytona 500 and looking in my rearview mirror because the guy's pushing me in behind her, right? I'm I'm let's move this way, one direction.
All right, that took me to my next part here, Justin. Avid NASCAR guy. We don't necessarily. This may not be the greatest show for it, but it's the outlet that we have here. How are you thinking Daytona 500 this year? How are you thinking the NASCAR season as a whole as we finally get underway? The long winter comes to an end.
Yeah.
Cars are back on the track. What do you got for Sunday?
Those that know me, Eric, that I'm a huge NASCAR fan. I'm not quite as big as our counterpart in Ram Jam, Ramsey, but I think Kevin Harvick is going to have a big year on his last hurrah. I think he's going to win one of the crown jewel races, whether that looks like the Coke Six, whether that looks like the Darlington, or Daytona at night, or the Daytona 500, maybe Indy. Uh, I think he's going to win one of those. I think he's probably going to make it to the Final Four. I think he's going to have a. I don't think Tony Stewart's going to let him have a crappy car on his Bon Voyage. I think he's done it right. So I'm not a Ford guy. I'm a Hendrick guy. Um, Typically a Chase Elliott guy, or a Willie Byron guy, but I think I'm going to secretly be rooting for old Kevin Harvick this year.
Right there with Sean, man. He's Sean, our kind of, let's say, fill in for you on the main show.
Yeah.
Uh, has really, I mean, he's been an RCR DEI guy for his whole life. So really looking forward. He said he's looking forward to Kevin Harvick's last run too.
He's going to do a special thing. I'm excited for Kyle Busch in a Chevy car too. Don't get me wrong, but I got to keep my eye on that Ford car.
His return to Chevy after a long winter.
Yeah,
Most people probably don't even remember when he was driving the 5 car for
yeah,
HMS.
yeah. A lot of good storylines though. Uh, what was it today? Two big drivers signed contract extensions.
Yeah, Alex
Um,
Bowman, I know did.
yeah,
Hendrick, and
and
I didn't see this
Suarez.
one. Oh, that's right. I did see that as well for the
And
Trackhouse.
then you got Priest filling in the 41. So there's a lot. There's a lot to look at. Colleague racing, AJ Allmendinger bumping back up. So if you're an avid NASCAR fan, not so much for this show, but if you're an avid NASCAR fan, you could really dig into some of those storylines and have a good time.
All right, Justin, that's about our time for this portion of the show. We finished up with an awesome interview with Russ Young, so be sure to check that out. Secret, it's already been recorded. That's why we keep referring
Yeah.
to it. But you're not going to want to miss it. It's awesome. Once again, thanks to everyone who's listened and pays attention, interacts with our social media channels. Main show will be back, I believe, Tuesday of next week. We'll try to kind of keep this on Wednesday because I think it's
Yeah.
best. But hopefully, big guest coming next week. Don't want to spoil it because scheduling has been a tough thing, as I'm sure Justin knows personally with the coaching sphere of the world. But big guest next, hoping.
Just real quick, all of our fans, over the last week, we put the second show out last week, Eric, and it was awesome. We've got a lot of feedback, personally and both on the page. Keep it coming, guys. We're really hoping to build this thing and hoping that it takes off. And lastly, just want to thank a good friend and a mentor of mine in Coach Russ Young. If you haven't seen him, he's one of the most likable and talk to-able guys in the sphere of coaching.
Yeah, I'd never talked to him before today, and or
Yeah.
not directly anyway. I'm sure I've crossed paths with him when he was at O'Connell and I was calling O'Connell games and for OCO and doing my thing for Door County. But I'm sure, like I said, I just can't. I don't have any memorable conversations, but I felt like I was talking to an old friend tonight. So
Yeah, he was a
awesome
good man. He's a
conversation with
good
him.
man. He's a good man. So, all right, buddy, I'm so happy. This episode turned out great too. We're
As
putting out good episodes, Eric.
I would say we're putting out good content everywhere.
The
We've got
heck?
Super Bowl coverage. We have the main show, if you will. We've got the side show.
Hey, I got a question for you.
All right.
Why were you so mad at Secretary Shauna's trivia question?
Oh, do you think we should do this off air or on show? No, I'm kidding. I wasn't mad at the questions, Justin. I was mad at how the outcome came, where I was up by more than double of what Sean was,
Let's
and we
be
had
fair.
a
Your guess
nonsense
was
scoring system
horrible.
out of nowhere.
Your guess was horrible. Sean's guess was horrible too, though. To be
I don't.
fair to you,
That's exactly what I'm saying. And if we're gonna go on
but
on a
she did
billion points for the end when I'm doubling the dude,
she did not say what it was going to be. She came out and said it was what it was going to be beforehand. You just suck at guessing.
yeah. The problem is because Sean.
50 some $1 million in beer sales on Super Bowl Sunday,
Well,
Eric.
to be honest with you, part of that was kind of guessing that people prepare ahead of time, and it doesn't necessarily count the sales that day. People go Friday, people go Saturday, so that was a big part of it for me.
You
And
overthought yourself.
I did, but the other tricky part is I know how Sean operates. Sean operates on a. I love the guy to death. Best man one of the best men in my wedding. I'm the best man at his wedding coming up. But he's very sneaky when it comes to these money guesses, these number guesses. Because if I would have said, 1 billion, he would have said 1.1 billion. It wouldn't have mattered because I had to go first because of some
That's
stupid
not
coin toss
sneaky.
rule. No, it's not sneaky. It's Price is Right rules, but it's aggravating because he always makes me go first. Of course, I lose the coin toss too. So
You lost the
that
flip.
was the frustration. So no
Okay.
matter what I would have guessed, I wouldn't have won. I could have guessed unless I had it
All right.
right on. It wouldn't have mattered. That's why I was mad.
Well, best of luck on your trivia challenge next week, Eric.
I appreciate. I'm gonna need it because it seems like it's rigged against me.
Well,
We talk about the NFL possibly being scripted and rigged,
let's be real, Eric. You won the real prize, all right?
I suppose.
Yeah.
All right. For Justin, Ramsey, Sean, Shauna, part of the Root for Wisconsin Network, I'm Eric signing off. Thanks again to Russ Young for joining us and all the athletes that we talk about in this show. Awesome content. I'm glad we get to do this part of it too. So thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Pay attention to the social medias because we'll have more content coming up.
Peace.
Kind enough to join us now, a legend in the Northeast Wisconsin coaching community. He's coached 28 varsity seasons as the O'Connell girls coach, third season with the Gillett Boys coach. Joining us now, Russ Young. Russ, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Justin?
Hey, Coach, it's almost as if I haven't seen you for a little bit after
Yeah, it's been a
practice.
while.
Like you, did you get a haircut since the last time I seen you?
I got a haircut.
No, our first question for you, Coach, is You spent 28 years as the girls varsity coach in O'Connell, and then the last 3 years as the boys varsity coach here in Gillett. What has the change been like switching from boys to girls basketball in any sense of the form in which you can relate to?
Sure. Well, the thing is, I started my coaching career and I had just one season with junior high boys in Oconto. I was a seventh grade coach just coming out of college back in 1989. And then I jumped into the girls program because there was, they needed a JV coach. And then my second year with the girls program, they needed a varsity coach. And kind of like today, you couldn't find a lot of people willing to coach back then. So I took a varsity job that I was nowhere near prepared to do. It's funny. I look back and I think about it, and I always tried to coach girls like I would coach guys. Um, but when I coach the boys now, it's there's just a different dynamic, male to male versus male to female.
Mhm.
I tend to think that some of the more successful female coaches that I've been around, guys have done a great job. There have been several women that have been outstanding. I just think that um, the ability to communicate um, same gender is just easier. There's just some things you understand better than I do. With regards to what I've discovered, and by no means do I, it was a different time with the girls. Um, Boys have put in more time than I thought they would. I didn't notice how much time the guys put in when I was coaching girls because I was focused on coaching girls. Now, 2 days a week, it's 6:45 in the morning. I've got a half a dozen to a dozen boys that are getting up on their own and coming to just shoot. No instruction,
Mhm.
nothing. They just come in to play. And that has been the difference more so is that if I speak generalization, the boys seem to put way more time in outside of season than the girls do. The girls tend to be better listeners during season, I have found, um, and they work their tail off for you. But the boys work their tail off when you're not watching them.
Mhm.
I'm going to piggyback on that question real quick. Just you've been coaching the varsity level for 31 years, which is longer than I've been alive. So just throwing that out there.
Way to
But
make me feel old.
I had to, but just real in that time frame, just kind of talking about the transition over the years. What has that been like adjusting as technology and everything that comes with 31 years of coaching comes along with that?
I tell you, it's funny you say that, Eric. When I retired a few years ago from teaching, and I was cleaning out my room, I had a series of videos, and I had the old VHS, and I have it down in my basement. I have a VHS that I had purchased in the early '90s that was how to coach basketball in the transition to the 1990s, and they were
That's
talking
awesome.
about how prevalent the 3-point was going to become to the game. And
Mhm.
I look back on it. I can't watch it now because I don't have a VHS. But you talk about how it was back then, and I still have VHS tapes from the first season I started coaching back 1990-91 when the girls played, and then that transitioned. Uh, if I back up for a moment, the retired coach from a conference school came back last year, and we were one of his first games. And so we have the NFHS system that you can download to whatever software program you use for coaching, and then you can share it with another coach. And so I said to him, I said, Coach, I'll share this with you. And now, granted, he was coaching back in the '70s, was when he started. And she says, nope, I've got it taped. And I'm not exaggerating when I tell you he came with the old VHS camcorder.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I started laughing, and I'm like, oh my God, you're bringing back memories to when we hauled around that monster of a camera. Um, The ironic thing was our system went down that night, and I had to borrow the tape from him. He had taped using the old VHS. But yeah, in terms of the transition from everything, when I first started, when I played in the 80s, Summer League consisted of 4 games that 4 schools got together and played in Lena. And it was on a Sunday night. You played 2 games. We played it for like 3 weeks, and we were done. When I came and started in Oconto, our first summer league we were at the Boys and Girls Club, and that was the only summer league that they had, and it was 1 game a week, and we played for 7 straight weeks, and that was the extent of your off season. You had a camp, and really you didn't see kids. Now at Gillett, Monday and Wednesday morning, I open the gym at 6:30 for boys or girls that want to come in. And I do that year round during the school year. And then we're in a summer league in the falls. We're in 1-day tournaments. We play through the Great Lake Ballers in Crivets. We participated in the Wisconsin Yearbook Tournament in Marshfield. This year, we're going to participate in the all of those, and we're going to participate in the WIAA Summer Jam, which is allowing kids to play in the D1 viewing period without having to pay the exorbitant AAU fees. So I just think that the time commitment, while it was a lot when I started, is even more so now. I joke with the athletic director and the superintendent in Gillett and say, when I start factoring in driving from Oconto every day, and during season it's every day, sometimes it's twice a day, because I'm not going to sit there all day after, I get done with open gym at 7:45 in the morning. I'm losing money when I factor in my gas and I'm not making anything. But so that transition has really been big. The technology has been nice because I don't have to travel like I used to. Coach will attest that even last year, I was a firm believer that I wanted to drive to watch you play. I believe in the eye test. I need to see you to see how quick you are. And now with NFHS, and you pay a yearly fee and you can see virtually any game in America. You don't have to travel like I once did. So and I can scout on my time rather than on whatever the game time is. That really has been the big difference. I did do a road trip this year to start the year. I went to Marion because we were playing them right away, and they didn't have NFHS, and I wanted to see them play. I got sicker than a dog. I shouldn't have been driving. I was running a high temp. It was miserable, but I thought I got to get there and do it. And so, I think if you look back to when I started in the early 90s, late 80s, kids weren't as committed as they are to basketball or a sport. Kids played 3 sports. They worked hard for you in season, and if you got a piece of them in the off season, it was maybe 5-6 times over the summer. Now that's not even close to what it is.
Yeah. Just to piggyback off of you, that technology outdating has not just outdated you, Coach. It has outdated me in my 16 years that I've been doing this.
It's crazy how it's just transitioned over time.
So the next question, when the opportunity for the Gillett Boys job opened, what drew you to that job?
Well, when I was finished at Oconto, when I was let go from Oconto, it was a hard pill to swallow. It was hard on the pride, and I was done. I wasn't going to coach again. And then Coach Daul asked me to just would I come and help out a little bit, and I thought, sure. It's funny that we talk about when I started, because when I got to Gillett, that group of girls that I was working with, the varsity, the JV, and I was working mostly with the freshmen. They reminded me so much of the kids when I started. There wasn't a sense of entitlement. There wasn't, they weren't owed anything. They just worked hard for you, and they were kind kids, and they were good kids. And I remember saying to the athletic director, Mike Kazmarek, I said, there's good kids here. And he said, There's good kids everywhere. And I laughed and I thought, you're right. But these are different group of kids. And so for me, what I thought a period of my life that I thought was over, working with those kids, I realized how much I loved the game and I still love teaching. And I wanted the boys' job to happen a year later when I was going to retire, but it came available my last year of teaching. So I was afraid that if I didn't jump on it, the chance wouldn't come again.
So just kind of piggybacking with that, I'm going to go a little off script, Justin, but I got to do it.
Right.
With coming to a new school and coming to a program that, I mean, no offense to anybody who's played in it, because it's been different. It's been down since I was in school almost 10 years ago. What is the challenge of trying to build a new program back up?
Well, it's interesting because it's twofold. One is it gives you the opportunity to start with a blank canvas. The first thing that I had to do when I came in, and I was lucky that, there were some great families in Gillett that had done some of the work for us, but they didn't do it consistently every year. The junior class that I have, those parents were outstanding in preparing them. They really understand the game very well. They had played enough and were coached well enough that when I took over, it was just implementing my system and focusing on the things that I believe in. But with the youth, it was starting from scratch. There was no money available. There was, there were no uniforms. There was no leagues that they were in. It was completely from scratch. The biggest obstacle I still face, and it is probably more a personality trait than anything, is I struggle giving up control. I have to learn to delegate and have others take responsibility. And so I'm struggling with that part of it because the program I want to run, that I want to have these kids in, is one that not only provides the fundamentals, but also teaches responsibility. And so that has been the biggest challenge. So we don't necessarily have coaches. This year, I coached the third grade team, the fourth grade team, the fifth grade team. On Saturday, I was coaching the sixth grade team at Suring. My assistant coach, who also helps with those, he was coaching the seventh and eighth grade team. It becomes a lot more difficult. I'm very blessed that my wife is a former basketball player and an athlete, and so she likes being around the sport, and that allows me to be able to coach. My kids are older, so I've done all that. All the stuff when they did something, I was there to support it as much as we could, and so I'm at that phase in my life where I'm able to devote the time to the program that maybe some other people haven't been able to. Previous coaches had other obligations and responsibilities. For me, it turned out to be the right job at the right time, and I've been blessed with it.
So earlier this year, Coach, one of the greatest accomplishments of a coach that they could have. I was so very happy to be a part of it and be by your side as your assistant coach at that moment. But you accomplished something that we were talking about for. It feels like it's my whole time as you led me into this path as a coach. But you accomplished your 300th win as a varsity head coach. You had a big celebration after that seemed like it touched you and hit you pretty hard at that moment. Just touch base on what that meant to you and what that number means to you as a varsity coach.
Well, to start with, that celebration was orchestrated by my wife, Caroline. She was the one who has watched all the time and effort I put in. And privately, she and I have talked about it, and it was a big deal to me. It's one of those things where you don't start your career thinking about something like that.
No doubt about
and
it.
and I've lost way more games than I've won. Only reason I know how many games I have won is because every year when you fill out the media survey slips, they always ask you what's your career record. I'm a history major by education, and I love that stuff. So when I was at Oconto, I had every girl that played since the very first game. I found out their scores, and whenever I could get the rebound totals, the assist totals, all of that sort of stuff. So I knew what my record was going in. And I talked about it with a few people. To steal from Aaron Rodgers, I had an inner circle that was aware of where I was, but that doesn't mean that people outside of that really knew. Um, but for me, I think, I look back and I think of some of the great people that I've worked with and I've coached against. And I think just a culmination of all of that, that it did. It meant quite a bit to me. It was just one of those things that you stop and you think, wow, I have been around and blessed enough to have done something that I truly love for 30 years.
Hmm. In the back of your mindset is it's not just the 300 wins, it's the people that you've impacted through those wins
Oh
and
my
through those
God,
years.
it is absolutely the kids because
Yeah.
I tell this. I don't know if people truly appreciate when I say this. One of my I look back now, it wasn't a great time when it happened. The year we did not win a game, we went winless. That group of girls, they were freshmen and sophomores, and they just weren't physically ready to compete at the varsity level. Um, but they came in and they worked, and you know, uh, some of my favorite kids of all time are from that class, and I'm still in contact with them. I got invited to their weddings and that sort of stuff. Ironically, this group that I have now of juniors was very similar in the sense that they had to play a varsity schedule as freshmen when they weren't physically ready to play as freshmen. And
Yeah.
like that group I had, they just worked their tail off. I never
Hmm.
once, and I'm not just saying this, I can't think of one time where I had any of those boys say to me, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm not having fun, or I don't want to work, or, why are we doing this? Um, they really this group for me is very much like that group. There's that sense of hard work. I will tell you that when you coach a better team, the pressure you put on yourself is immense. And so the year we went to the sectional final, and as much as those memories are great, that was a miserable year. um, I didn't sleep well. I was a beast to deal with because you don't want to screw up, you know.
Hmm.
um, I learned over time to appreciate the kids. But man, that's a tough thing when you're good and you don't want to let the kids down.
Hmm.
So transitioning with that to this season, uh, kind of finding your footing here as it gets closer to playoff time, and finding that footing to kind of peak at the right time, if you will. So talking about that grade, that that class that you've had for 3 years now, and where they're kind of at as a team right now. Where do you think this team is right now, and are you peaking? Kind of answering those questions. Are you peaking at the right time, and you building toward as you build towards March?
Well, I do feel like we're playing some of our best basketball right now. I don't think it's a coincidence that we've gotten healthy and we've got kids that are able to play now that weren't able to play early on. And they're learning their roles. It's the hardest thing to teach anyone, especially high school boys, is the concept of we versus the concept of me. And the me mentality is I'm not scoring. I'm not playing enough. I'm not whatever. Um, it's hard when you've got talented kids and everyone wants to play. Uh, these these kids on this group, on this team that we have right now, from the first kid to the last kid who gets in the game, I think they understand everyone has a role. And I think we've played better as people have learned to accept their roles and embrace their roles, even if they don't necessarily agree with their role. Um, Going back to earlier when I said, I struggle with control, I think everyone understands that I try very hard to be direct with what I say. And so if I'm telling you your role is to defend and rebound, and you're not going to defend and rebound, then uh, I think the world of you, but you're not going to play. So it's
Mm-hmm.
either it's our way or the highway kind of thing. And
Mm-hmm.
the kids seem to have bought in. They seem to genuinely like each other. Um, we've just waited for maturation and Mother Nature to catch up with some of the boys. Um, you know, when they played as freshmen and Austin was a sophomore. I mean, my God, Austin couldn't have weighed more than 105 pounds as a sophomore,
Right.
and he was
Well,
6'2". Now he's
yeah.
155 pounds, and he's 6'3" and a half, and it's just been waiting for that to happen. Um, so I think right now we're, knock on wood, we're relatively healthy, and we seem to be playing some good basketball right now. We're in the midst of a nice little streak of wins that we've had, and we've got a big game tomorrow night with Oneida that'll determine a lot of where we are in the tournament. But we were able to surprise some people last year and make the regional final. Um, I think a lot more was expected of us coming back, and maybe the boys weren't quite emotionally ready to handle that level of expectation at the start of the year. But I think we're getting to the point where we should be okay.
Hmm. So let's touch base on interesting question um, that I like to ask is what is your biggest challenge as a coach in your lifetime as a coach over your 31 years, 32 years?
You
And
know,
then not just lifetime, but then your biggest challenge this year also.
well, the simple answer in both cases is the biggest obstacle I have to overcome is myself. It's not easy when you don't necessarily. I screw up enough on my own, and I worry about somebody else screwing up, and how that's going to impact things. And so the delegation has always been a problem. Um, I think that, in terms of coaching, um, I have been extremely blessed that my wife and children have been very supportive of what I have done. My daughter played for me, um, the good and the bad with that. But those are times that she and I have shared that we can never um, get back, or anyone else has had with us. Um, right now, the biggest obstacle, if I were truly looking at it, would simply be time. There just isn't enough time in the day to do all that needs to be done. Um, I certainly don't think I could do as good a job at Gillett this year if I wasn't retired. If I was still teaching, I've had this conversation with my wife. I said, I don't know how the heck I would do it if I was still teaching. Um, now I can take a nap during the day if I need to. I can't do that when I'm teaching. You don't generally like that. So it's kind of funny that time is the biggest obstacle in terms of this year. And again, I would say time. It's finding enough time to get everything installed that you want to have installed. It's having enough variety in what you do. Um, I tend to be a fairly regimented person in the sense that um, I have a ritual that I follow. My practices generally start the same way for the first 30 minutes, 40 minutes. We do the same drills at the same order at the same day. Today we switched it up, and I was all confused. And some of the guys were like, "No, coach, you're doing this now," and I kind of chuckle. Um, I think those are obstacles that coaches face, and of course, now today's generation, you got to keep it fun and interesting. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the group of boys I have, it's funny. They tell me, "Oh, you should yell at me, coach. You need to be more hard on me." Well, the girls who played for me watch me now. They're like, "Who the hell is this guy coaching? Where's the guy who threw clipboards at us? Where's the guy
Yeah.
that slammed lockers?" And and he screamed, and they laugh at me. They're like, that isn't fair. They get the good guy, and we had the jerk. And I tell the kids, if I ever were to ride them like I did in the 90s, they would be crying for a week. It reminds me of the Facebook meme of "You can't hurt my feelings." I held a flashlight from my father when we changed a tire. I was I was kind of my dad, and wasn't always the kindest person. Um,
No.
so it's that's an interesting challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we look at the game and the world of boys basketball as a whole, we've got some questions coming up here. A pretty important game coming up next week. I know that they're all important, but bigger picture next week. I know we've talked about it on our main Root for Wisconsin show. We posted on Facebook. I know Justin and I'm sure you as well, have been involved in different elements of it. But the Liam Britzke benefit game next week. First, I want to ask just kind of about that, how that kind of came to be, and then also kind of the challenges for kind of an emotional kind of game like that, where the gym's going to be full, the community's going to come out against a rival on top of it too. So everything that kind of goes into that and keeping the boys focused on the game itself.
Liam's a young man who was a second grader. He plays with our third grade team. He's got twin brothers who play fourth grade, and so Liam has been around the youth program for 3 years. Mom would bring Liam to his brother's practice, and Liam would jump into drills, and so it's a terrible thing that's happened. That's going to be a crazy night for us because we've got the Liam benefit. We're recognizing our Gillett youth boys basketball program during the halftime of the varsity, and then after the game is our senior night for our senior boys, 4 of them. And so, and it's against CERN, which is a big deal. It's the conversation I have with the boys, and I've had this since day one, is that no one game is more important than any other. The most important game is the next game, and you can't put too much emphasis on one over another. I told them that my challenge this year is to not let them get too high or too low. And we've reached high highs and we've hit some low spots. Because basketball is a long season. It's 3.5 months. Then when you throw in the emotions that come with a situation like with Liam, Jay and Kelly, his parents, are involved, and they're wonderful people. The fundraiser came about because Erin Borant, who's got a son in second grade, friends with Liam, and Erin coaches fourth grade girls, and she helps out with the boys third grade. She and a couple of other parents try to figure out what they could do to help, and thought, what, let's do this. This will work. The timing works out because if I recall correctly, Liam should be at the game. He was back this weekend when we were in Suring for the Emerson weekend that we had, which was a wonderful event that Katie Kegel had put on. That was just excellent, well run. So hopefully Liam will be there. You're right. It's hard. It's hard to handle the emotions of it, but it really emphasizes what I keep telling the guys, which is win, lose, or draw, the sun's going to come up tomorrow, and this is just a stupid game. We get to play a game, and we got to remember it's a game and not think it's life and death, because there's way more things that are way more serious. And the Liam Britzke benefit, the purpose of it is way more serious than a basketball game.
Mm-hmm. Just an incredible thing that Aaron is doing, and the families that are helping out Aaron kind of put it on. Just a real quick shout out for Aaron. It's amazing, and really how quick that type of thing is gonna happen too, from the moment that it started, and she came up with the idea to do this, and really generally picked the right game to do it, the right crowd. Something happened similar to when we played up in Suring. Just a great job that Suring did up there. So it's going to be a great night. It's going to be a crazy night. It might be the earliest game that I'll get there as your assistant coach that night, so I can find a good parking spot
Yeah.
instead of parking all the way. So we're gonna kind of switch gears now. I'm gonna ask you some of the popular questions, and we've talked immensely about these topics over the years, and nobody handles change very well. Me specifically, and you and I have butted heads on what change looks like for each one of us over our time together. But the popular questions, what does what do you think about the proposition of a shot clock and a charge circle into our game, into the WIA high school athletics?
Well, I'm old school. If it ain't broke, it doesn't need to be fixed.
Hmm.
The purpose of the shot clock, I'm not crazy about it because we're going to adjust the high school game because less than 5% of those kids are going to go play with a shot clock in college. So we're going to make 95% of the kids who are never going to have to deal with a shot clock in college have to deal with it in high school. On the flip side, as Coach Bronson from Coleman will tell you, a shot clock is really forces you to play good defense. Um, we were talking about this several times, Coach Bauman from Crivets, Bronson, and I, that you'll probably pick people up full court. You try and eat 4, 5, 6 seconds of clock up, just bringing the ball up, and then all you got to do is defend for 30 seconds. We had a game on Friday night at Niagara where we had one series. We were switched our defenses and we played man, and we played man outstanding for about 40 seconds where they couldn't even get a shot up. And then about the 41st or 42nd, a kid made a great backdoor cut and they were able to score. Um,
Hmm.
that 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 sequence, the reward we would have had would be to get the ball out of turnover, and that would have been a great thing to have. Um, but a shot clock, I'm just not in favor of for twofold. One, I don't know that the game needs it, and two, for small rural districts, Gillett being one, um, we can't find enough workers already, and now we got to find somebody who understands how a shot clock's going to work and to do it properly. Um, and then, of course, you've got to get officials that understand how to enforce it. And if it isn't broke, I don't know why you fix it. Same thing with the charge circle. It's a great idea, but now you're going to have the high school refs have to watch where their feet are also,
Hmm.
in determining whether or not it should be a charge. Um, I mean, in concept, I understand why, and in some cases, I can see the benefit to both ideas. I just think realistically, people are so worried about the speed and the score and all of that stuff that I think they lose sight of what high school basketball is. The shot clock was initially instituted to get the score higher in NBA games because people want to see offense.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
it just nobody wants to watch a 4 to. It just happened in Oklahoma within the past couple of weeks, a 4-2 basketball game, and I had to laugh because I had seen on With Sports Travis Wilson make the comment that the coach should be fired, and I'm thinking, so you want to fire a coach because he thought his best strategy to win the game was to hold the ball. And so now you don't want coaches to do their best strategy. You want coaches to, I just, I tell you what, um, I just said it earlier with the Liam Britzke thing. It's just a game.
Hmm.
Let
Right.
the kids have fun. Let them play
Yeah.
and let them have fun.
Hmm.
I wasn't crazy about the running clock rule until I saw how it was enforced, and I think that's great. That really does. Um, it does what it's supposed to. It limits somebody from just getting beaten so bad. Um,
Hmm.
on the flip side of the running clock is your bench kids don't get as much game time. So for everything that happens, there's a positive and a negative to it. I I,
Hmm.
I just hope that when they do the shot clock, because they're going to, and it's one of those things where there's a group of people that want it, and so they're just gonna keep coming at it until they get their way.
Hmm.
The survey that came
Break
out
you down.
from the Coaches Association was great. Question one was, do you want a shot clock? And the vast majority of coaches said no. question 2 said, well, do you want a 1-year implementation or a 2-year implementation? And everybody said 2. And so the Coaches Association, see, everyone wants it done in 2 years. No, that's not what they said. They said they don't want it, but I just think they're going to spin it and spin it and spin it until it goes. I think if a conference and a school want to put in a shot clock, go ahead. What do I care? But I don't think you should be forcing districts like Gillett that are struggling with enrollment and dollars coming in and help as is. Now you're going to put another thing on their plate. I think it's a bad idea.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree. I see, every time that there is one of those 4-2 games, there's naysayers and the Travis Wilsons of the world who, well, I'll save that topic, but it does get amplified. There's always one game a year that it happens to.
Yeah.
So just kind of going with that and talking about the changes of the modern basketball world, kind of talking about the update to how seeding is done versus with the new computer system.
Right.
Kind of talking about that, if you will, and your thoughts on that computer seeding system.
Well, I don't have a problem with the computer seeding system. I wish I knew what the exact formula was so that we could design our schedule to maximize it. Is the formula going to base wins over everything else? Is it going to base margin of victory, which they said they're not? Is it my opponent's record or is it my opponent's record that is going to matter? So I think what's happening now, you see, is a lot of the bigger schools are playing smaller schools. So a lot of D2s and D3s will play the D5s with a winning record because the opponent record is a determining factor in seeding. It doesn't factor in the strength of schedule. It doesn't factor in the strength of your conference. So to give you an example, Gibraltar has got 6 wins, I think, or 7 wins this year. They play in a very difficult conference, the Packer-Land, with Division III, Division IV, and Division V schools in it. Their record in that conference is not going to be great. NEW Lutheran, a terrific Division V program, has, I think, 5 or 6 losses in that conference. Well, overall, they have 3 losses in that conference. And so I think that the tournament shakes itself out so that the best teams get to state. For the most part, that's going to happen. There are going to be times where 3 really great teams are going to be in the same sectional and only one's going to get out of there. But by and large, the better teams get to move on to state. I think that shakes itself out. I don't have a problem with the computer. Quite honestly, I like it better than when coaches did it because coaches were voting based upon who the opponent would be next down the line and not giving the seed to the team that should be. Example of that was I was at Oconto and we were, what were we? We were like 18-4 or something at the time. And Coleman was 21-1. And we had beaten Coleman to start the season. And we were the 5 seed and Coleman was the 4 seed. And the only way it would be adjusted would be if we appealed. And I chose not to appeal. And my logic behind it was the previous year we had gotten the bye and we just weren't ready for that first game. A coaching legend from the area, Carl Brudnick, his granddaughter was coaching Sorensen at Clintonville. And Carl said to me after the meeting, he said, "Young man, you'll learn, play the game. Don't worry about the bye, play the game." And I thought, whatever, Carl. Well, sure enough, we played that game. We had the bye. They had gotten all of the kinks out in the first game, and we ended up losing to a team that I felt we should have beaten. So the following year, I took it because the first 4 teams had the bye that year. And when I refused to appeal, the Coleman coach just turned around, looked at me, and shook his head. And we ended up, playing the first game and getting our kinks out, and ended up winning by 20 at Coleman. But that's just, that when you let coaches get involved, the human factor becomes too prevalent. I like the computer that's going to be much more objective look at the numbers. But I would agree with Coach that there has to be some type of an appeal process. If you look at the girls Division 5, Sevastopol had one loss and got the 2 seed. At the time, Leona had 5 losses and got the 1 seed. I think if you could have appealed that and talked it through, you'd have said, yeah, they're in a bigger, tougher conference. It made more sense for Sevastopol to be above, but nothing's perfect.
Yeah. Yep. And we'll touch base on that, or we did touch base on that. So, one of the things I would love to ask, because I've gotten this advice straight from you as somebody that has guided me through my coaching career. What advice would you give a young coach now, as they're starting to learn how to run their own program?
The most important thing when you do that is to understand the me versus we. As a young coach, I was all about the me part of it. There was no way that everything revolved around me. We used to laugh and joke. It's always about me, but it isn't. It's really about the kids. Um, I'm one of those people that I became a teacher because I wanted to coach, not because I wanted to teach. It took me about 5 or 6 years to understand that I had a classroom and it was the gymnasium, and that was where I taught. Even tonight, we have practice and I'm still teaching. I'm preparing to teach. I have a practice plan. I have a game plan. I'm always focusing on the teaching part of what I do. And so I would say to any new coach, understand that you are a teacher first and an X and O's person second.
Yep. I think that's great advice.
Piggybacking on that, I mean, that's excellent advice. Piggybacking on that, you mentioned retiring as a teacher and naps aside, which has been a benefit. What what has been one of those driving forces to continue coaching when the work is now in the books?
Well, like I say, I discovered about 6 years in that as a coach, I was a teacher and I love teaching. I do. I remember I was at a clinic once and Carol Hammerly was the UWGB women's coach. And she had made a comment well before it came out later in a movie. She said, the thing about coaching is that these kids are always the same age. I might get older, but these kids are the same. She says, I always know the lingo. I always know the music. I know what's going on. She said, it keeps me young and alive being around these young people. And I thought, oh, you're crazy, but it really is true. Now when they use their lingo and slang, I usually have to stop. Say, okay, I have no idea what you're saying. I'm an old man. I don't know what that means. And they'll laugh like, no, coach, you know what I mean? No, I really don't know what you are saying. But I think that, that's when I retired, I wasn't sure what I was going to do because all my life I've been Russ Young, a teacher and coach. And, you face that moment. I'm thinking, well, what do I do? And then I started working with Coach Daul and in Gillett and thought, I love coaching. I love the strategy of it. I love the implementation of a game plan, of a practice plan into fruition. I love the whole analysis of where you are and where you're going to be. All of that. It's a human chess match for a coach, and that in and of itself can be a rather addictive thing. You see in the news that Jerry Pettigrew is finally retiring after 50 some years of doing it, and once you've done this and you've done it long enough, you realize that um, it's a very exclusive club that you belong to be a high school varsity coach. To be a high school varsity coach for more than 10 years, for more than 15, 20, you start rolling on. The more years you go, the more exclusive the club becomes. And if I had this conversation with Terry Urin from Niagara, who is older than I am, and I said, Terry, you remember when we first started, and we'd sit down on the bleachers, and you would just talk for 40 minutes of the JV game, nothing about basketball, just friends, because you understood the same issues each other were facing, the same obstacles, the same conversations, the same everything, because it's kind of universal. And not everybody can appreciate what you have to do to be a head coach. And Terry and I were talking, and we were laughing. And after the game, I had to get the stats done, and we were kind of talking a little bit. My wife was watching the film, the game online. And she said, "Were you two arguing because your hands were flying?" I said, "Oh, actually, no, we weren't. We were laughing about, oh, remember the days of." Um, and so I guess that's the other thing that coaching brings is you really get to develop some very good relationships with great people who have a similar like that you have.
Hmm. Hmm. So as you've gone through your coaching career, you've seen so many coaching careers develop and grow and what they've done with programs.
Mhm.
Um, just touch on some of those coaches that you've maybe admired from afar, as an opponent or a
Sure.
rival or.
When I first started, Jimmy Benish, who just passed away last year from Sturgeon
Hmm.
Bay, Jimmy was in the girls program. Then he jumped to the boys program. He took over after Mel Bouchine, and Mel had a terrific career at Sturgeon Bay. And Jimmy worked hard, and I watched him, and there's a friendship, like I say. Pete Claflin and Brent Claflin from Southern Door. Brent was the football coach when they had their great run. Pete, his brother, was a boys basketball coach. Um, those were two terrific guys. Of course, Mark Zastro, Zug, who I consider a good friend of mine. Um, he was awesome at Algoma. And I watched Zug come in after so many before him, and they were good coaches prior to him. Don't get me wrong. Um, Zug really, I learned a lot from him, and when I was able to just be with him for 4 days for the All-Star game as his assistant coach, um, he gives me a hard time because I didn't do a thing, and I thought, well, listen, pal, I'm watching you. I'm not worried about anything else. You don't need my help. You're just fine on your own. Lynn Geyer from Kiwani, you know, the year that we lost 5 games, we were 20-5, I think. Our 5 losses came to the Division 4 and Division 5 state champions. So I always say, hey, we were the or Division 3 and Division 4. We were the second best team in Division 3 and Division 4 that year. The only teams that could beat us were those two. Um, they were terrific coaches. Um, Dwayne Rogotsky, running the girls program at Oconto Falls. Rogo was a character. Um, Kaz Merrick, Coach Daul and Gillett. Um, those guys had great programs. I look at Coach Bronson in Coleman, and they're solid. He just does a great job. Um, You've got Coach Bauman and Krivitz, and just what a fantastic job he has done and continues to do. Um, so it's always fun to see those around you. Um, you hope that they look at you similarly. You,
Hmm.
you hope that there's a mutual respect there. But yeah, I have been very, very fortunate to have coached against a lot of great coaches. I used to say when we were in the Packerland, um, that was as close to professional coaches as you were going to get because all of us took it serious. It
Yeah.
wasn't like we just showed up at practice. Well, what do you feel like doing today? We were on the road scouting each other, and we were, always trying to figure the way to beat somebody else. Um, that's the type of stuff that if you enjoy competition and you enjoy that type of thing, that's what coaching brings to you. It gives you that
Yeah.
just that immense personal challenge to be the best you can be and be better than the person you're going against.
Yeah, and just real quick, one last question here from me before we wrap up. But just about the players. I don't want to have the cop-out answer that they're all your favorite players, but some of those bigger success stories that you've gotten to see from, growth, maybe coming in as a freshman or even from, the kind of afar from the 7th, 8th grade level. And as they've kind of grown into those players that can take you as far as they have as a coach.
Yeah, when I started with the girls program, Heather Warnicki at Oconto was a tremendous athlete. And then we had a run where we didn't have much. And then along came Charlotte Koski and Amanda Hoppy and Carrie Hermson, who is married to Steve Jones, the former Kimberly football coach. Lisa Allen, Jenny Rutho. That group was so much fun, and I learned so much with and from them. And then Lakin James was an amazing basketball player. I've never been around a kid who worked harder than she did, period. I mean, that kid just worked all the time. There wasn't a day off. Now I've got, I've been fortunate enough to be around Aubrey DeBush and Carissa Shaw were just same thing. They just worked hard. They weren't afraid of hard work.
Those girls bring a smile to my face, Coach.
Yeah, they were pistols. They were fun to be around. And Aubrey's got a little brother, Jesse, who's a pretty doggone good player. And I've got Aiden Franti, Benny Machek, Braden Bielen, Tyler Frank, Brandon DeBush, Austin Vanderkorp. When I talk about kids that I've just that really you talk about growth and development, Austin Vanderkorp is the kid for me. He's always been he's been overlooked because of his size, because he was just so small. But that kid's got more heart than anybody I know. And I have just watched him work and work and work. And he's as good a kid as he is a basketball player. It's hard to just limit it. But man, I mean, I can think of Amanda Hoppy and Chandel Van Hecky and Bailey McClintock, and I can just start rattling off name after name and tell you, oh my God, they were just great kids, and they were so much fun because they bought into what we were trying to do. We had a mutual goal. We were working toward it. We were both giving our best effort. Whether we reached it or not became irrelevant. The journey was our reward. It really is true. We can sit back now and we don't talk about the game we won or lost. Now we talk about, remember that bus ride, Coach? Remember that time in practice when one young lady was trying to roll a ball on her foot and face planted and scun her chin, and we laugh about that stuff now, and those are the moments that really become so much more meaningful to you. The 300 win was a big deal, and it was meaningful, but it really wasn't the 300 win that was the meaningful part. It was all of those moments that led to the 300 win that kind of overwhelmed me.
All right, last one, Coach. This is a big one. Where are you guys watching the bracket reveal?
Well, you know what? We've got practice on Sunday night because we play on Monday. And so I don't know that we're going to watch it together. I'll have the bracket up for them so they can see where it is and what it is. Too many of them work during the day, and so it's kind of hard. But on Sunday night, we will definitely be talking about it. But knowing those boys, my phone will be lighting up as I'm getting texts from saying, "Can you believe that Surrey got a 1 seed?"
Austin Vanderkorp, as much as you talked about him, he's a jokester. He's a funny kid. We were telling some jokes too, and I'm sure he'll be one of the first ones to text you and ask you.
Oh, absolutely. He's
Russ, is that just your way of saying that Justin's not invited to the watch party?
Yeah.
Listen, he only comes to practice when we've got food.
It's not true. I didn't get fed tonight, so I'm upset. But that's it, Coach. I want to thank you so very much on short notice, coming in, really filling in, doing a great job with us. I'm sorry if we went a little bit longer. I think it was a great interview. So really, thank you.
Hey, I appreciate it, guys. Thank you very much. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. So going into that game, kind of talking about the challenges that come with it and the whole situation itself, if you could just kind of elaborate on the situation.
Yeah.